So, something mentioned there. Maybe they didn't see it. Okay. Did we have something new? No. Okay. So, today's topic about models. And let me share my screen. So, models. This is really interesting topics, especially because models appears in JavaScript in ECMAScript 6. Before that, models didn't exist in a JavaScript, and we export some scripts just using grunt tools, and also we just include our scripts to HTML page using script and src and put in there the path to the script. So actually here say that everything is a model, and yeah, that's true because so we usually what we can talk about why usually everything is model, right? So every code is every programming language can be modularized. So, and it means that we can separate our parts of code to some models. For example, we have an application about website. So, and our website has a menu bar, has a tree where we can find something through the website, and we have a content page where usually might change some information depending on what we choose on the website tree. So, for example, here on this page might be some menu model. Inside this menu model might be the common part of this menu, and each child, I'm talking about each item in the menu, might be different model. So as a result, we just correctly using the child model in parents, and we create in such cases something bigger than just 3 files. So that's what meant in this part. So about GoTo, so what we can tell about GoTo, that we might mark as code as a GoTo and go in there after sometimes. It will be highlighted in different colors depending on the ID which you are using to create your code. But usually we using break and continue in order to in order to manage our code. I'm talking about if you would like to break some execution, you can use break, or if you would like to continue after some part of code, you might use a continue word. Usually we are using them in a we're using them in a in the functions, in some cycles. That's how it will be work. But here, for example, we have some picture about GoTo, and in some other languages we might use this GoTo and put there some information about some piece of code or some special actions. But in JavaScript, it just marking as a GoTo, and we go. And usually it means that we just need to come back and continue to work to develop this code. But that's only how it works in JavaScript. Okay, about dependencies. You might notice that when you're running some code, you cannot using use strict mode especially. You cannot call the function, for example, add before you call this function, right? So, for example, we're trying to cancel a log it here, or just type in add 3 and 4, and we will have an errors if we're using strict mode. But for example, here in this example, mentioned that we have some kind of hierarchy about how we can call each function. So add function we might call only in multifunction after it means multiplying, I think. Multiplying function we might use only with add function, but without defining this add function before, we cannot use in such cases add function in multiplier. So the same here with the power in 2. Multifunction should be defined before, not after, and so that's meaning that we should remember about hierarchy of modules and hierarchies about functions. So in order to using correctly code, in order to calling them correctly. Then I would like to go to this topic actually, and to talk a little bit about JavaScript ES5. So in JavaScript ECMAScript 5, there were no models, and that it was like a bit difficult situation. How we if we would like to using some separate files for modern models. So that's what I mentioned just a little bit earlier. We just call in some script using src and put in there some passes to the files, and then how we could use them. But in ECMAScript 6 was created model patterns, and now it is better and easier to import some parts of code. And here we could take a look at some examples, how to use them. So for example, here, we could see the example of immediately invoked function expressions, where it is. So this is a simple solution, initialization of immediate invoke function expression. So while it is still possible to use global variables, it encourages using well-defined interfaces. Still, the expert modules are globally accessible. So what we could tell about this example? For example, okay, let's take a look at the common.js file. Here we have a random function, which is a self-invoked, and constant, and the variables main page. Here, what we can see, the issue with the circular dependency is clearly a problem now. However, it is nothing that an ingenious developer can solve with a little tactic work around. So, okay, seems like they would like to provide us a few examples about how we can help page tries to use main page, but that will be defined later. Yeah, so main page in these cases is located into the main page JS file with a self-invoked function, and main page is using render function, file page, edit page, and help page. And then inner HTML provides some results. So render function here is returning some content with creating an array of elements for menu with here is action title on clicks event. We're providing some action with a title, and help page, what's doing help page function, which is return context help page. Please choose main to continue, and menu title menu action render main page. So what is here? Help page is trying to use main page. Okay, but that will be defined later. It seems like we should, this is a continue. But okay, now I see. So let's take a look at the index HTML here in this example. In this example, we see that first define it common.js, then file, edit, help, main. And because of this order, we cannot use something from help page because help page something from main page before the script will not load it in help page. So here, for example, main page will be defined a bit later. So in this case, it will be error, right? But for example, help page, what does she can do? Main page, no, only main page. In common.js, we have what we have. Common.js is started before, and so here is a self-invoked function. So that's why here will not be any issues. But for example, in main page, everything will be okay because a render will be defined to this moment because common.js will be loaded before in the first step. Then because of main page is loaded in the end, help page will have an error with executing of the code. So I'm just switching the file because I would like to start with some more basic things about module. We just saw how it works in EX5. Now let's take a look at the examples with EX6 modules. So here, for example, okay, so better to ask, what is it modules? Right now, after we saw some simple example about modules, we could see that scripts have a type, attribute type with a module word also, and other parameters didn't change, right? So, and here in each script, we see that there is an import. Import, we should see also export. Yes, here the export. And here the same the same in main page. We also see import, export default, for example. Import something, some exact function from some file or just file. What is the differences? You might think about it. So let's take a look a bit closer to this. So from ECMAScript 5, JavaScript provides an unified way the JavaScript modules. What is it, modules? Modules, this is a file, one script. This is a one module. The modules could load each other. They are also can use export and imports in order to exchange functionality between files, call the functions. So, for example, they might call the functions from one module to another module, or, for example, they can use some variables on constants from one file to another file. That's what modules allow us to do. Unfortunately, there are some issues with Internet Explorer. That Internet Explorer doesn't support the modules. So that's why it's still required a build system to create a bundle for Internet Explorer and pass the standards ECMAScript modules to the proper browser. So actually, usually if we're using Webpack, we might include some plugins which allow us to build the bundle to Internet Explorer browser. That's how we can avoid some issues or errors. But other browsers, usually you could, so because the Chrome, for example, has the quicker updates, in Chrome you will not see such issues, right? But as I remember, Safari and Firefox also didn't have any issues. Let's take a look to the modules. MDN. And I remove the Russian language here. No, it should. No. Okay, Russian, English. Cool. And here you could see as a result, as usual, some availabilities of these constructions. And we could see that Chrome, Firefox might work with it, but not with version which is oldest of 67. Here also might some issues with Node.js, but and also please just know that sometimes might be issues with browser supports with modules, and be careful with it. And maybe you, in order to build your project, you just need to include some plugins and they help you to resolve the issue. So right now, let's go to this slide again, and let's let me see about this. We will be actually we will be switching between these files. So that's why I would like to explain you next important things. What is I've told you about export directive export and import. What they are doing. Export allow us using export directive, we marked some functions or variables which should be available in other files. Import, import allow us import functions or variables. So let's take a look at the example in help page.js file. here we could see that we are importing, for example, this. Let's take a look at the second line, import main page from main page.js. So let's take a look at the main page.js. Here we should see some export by default, and by default it will be export in main page. This main page contains some content, menu. That's how we usually implement it. We might implement about export default. What I can tell you about this. Let me think how to explain it. So export default, this is a special syntaxes, which is allow us to export some part of code, variables, classes, functions by default. So how to explain why we would like to use export default? First of all, this is really convenient because you shouldn't mark that you need export each constant and each functions from the whole file. So that's why we usually use export default. I need to mark that in the file must be only one export default. You cannot use something other. Usually, if we are exporting something by default, we might import this page without square brackets. This is the main differences between just exporting some functions. For example, in the first line, we saw that import, this is importing render from CommonJS. In the CommonJS, we see that we saw the exporting of constant render. That's why in the square brackets was marked render. So if do we have any examples? No. So for example, if in CommonJS will be not only render, there might be some function, export function, say hi, for example, and also they might be function, for example, export function, say goodbye. And if you would like export only two functions, you would like to export only render function, you just mark it like render and you don't export and say hi or say goodbye. But if you're using export by default, it means that from the page you just exporting the object, class, function, which is contained something. Usually this object just, like main object from this model, and you're exporting them to another file. Maybe I something forget. Let me check, please. Yeah, you know what? Here, as I remember, wasn't mark about exports in S. Yeah. So this is another option how we can export something. We might let me this JS video net. Okay, so you saw that we might do we might text export default default. So say hi. Let's just imagine that here's some function, say hi. And in another file, you will be, it's incorrect, of course, but I can change, no, I cannot change to another file. So let's imagine that here should be JavaScript, okay? And this is like trying to show you, maybe it's better will be here. And it will be correct. Once, just give me a second, please. Okay, let's use this. So, for example, that's about stash. No, that's needed me. That's what I would like use too. Okay. In hello world.js, we just copy paste this script, and in new second we try to import this. We just say import. So in this file was written about export by default. So export import say hi, automatically my IDE provide me correct path. What I should tell about here, usually it's not correct such implementation. I'm talking about the path to the file, because without .js it might not work in the browser. So if you will use Webpack or some tool which create bundle for you or build the application, it will be okay. You might just provide some settings there, and it will not be issue. But here in this case, it's not really good. Usually, it's better to use the full name of file in order to avoid issues. So that's how we can import say hi, okay, function. So if we would like to add here some additional, we might use export by default. So what I'm doing, if I'm exporting by default some functions, it means that if I can tell here import this is like a not file and not a function. I might text here just text from hello world and try to console.log hello world, and here text this, and how we can, let's try to use it in index HTML script. We will remove it here. Script type model, and src to so I need to game for friends / test / new to, then open it in the web browser and let's take a look. at our hello world word favicon, it should be okay. So we could see hello world here. So what does it mean? It means that if you're expert in something by default, usually we using the same keyword, the same name when we import in this file, but actually it's not important. Also, we might export in, with say s word, how it will be. So it means if I would like to say, so say hi as default, it's what we need to remove. So then here I might in my exporting file I might use only this, and here there are no any issues even. So also we can import something, some classes, for example. Let's talk about it like this. Export say hi, and we might import it as say hi as text, and the same I can use, but it's just a little bit incorrect. So basically, okay, better. What I can provide another. So usually we can, just say hi as text. No, it's yeah, I wasn't correct. Default as text, and I just, in this case, I can use the same. So we have a few default imports and exports. There is some variance of how we can import in, but the result will be the same. You just import or export some variables, functions, classes, no matter. Also, there is some special sign which is import with star. So, for example, we could say that as text. This is hide it from and the path to hello world file. That's another way how we can import in some models. What I can tell you about what about minuses, about exporting by default. Sometimes if we exporting by default, it's better to use the correct name of when we will import in some functions variables. But for example, no, it's not. I'm confused about if we using some expert, not about. So naming experts. I'm talking about if we create some function and we would like to export this function just because, like this, expert function say by. Oh, no, incorrect. So if we would like to export such function, right, we just need to use this name of function import. So here, for example, let's use this import, and here I just can tell something like this. So I've imported this, but the minuses that I need to use only this name of function. I cannot change it. Actually, we could use like s methods, but it works only with the default exporting, but not in this case. I cannot rename this function. So this is the one of the minuses also, and one more difficult and not difficult. This is like might be not good if you have a big team, because you, for example, you by default export some files, not files, some functions, variables, and you would like to export it by default. Usually, if you have a big team, you have some. You should have some rules how you will export by default. That's why usually you cannot change this as I provided you some examples here. Usually we just using the correct name of the exporting function or variables object, and in order to avoid some misunderstanding or creating too much of names of this default object. So that's what sometimes confusing in working in the same default exports. But but this is what we need to know. So also there is some additional syntaxes about re-exporting for re-export, but I provide you to learn by yourself. To read it. It's not a big topic, just a few notes about how we can re-export default function using with a different name, which is I mentioned just a bit earlier. How we can importing or exporting the same in the same file. So you just import something and export just right now, like like this export. It's incorrect. Still incorrect. Okay, something like this. Why we doing sometimes this? Also, we might do re-export of default. Sometimes, so not re-export. We might export by default the same. The syntaxes will be the same. Export default from, and here the path to file. Let's say like this. JS. No, there is no test JS. That's why it's marked as issue. But yeah, you should know that there is such syntaxes. We are using this in order to re-export some information by default. So let's go to the main theory and what I should mention also. So if you had any questions, I didn't notice it. Sorry about this. Okay. So about how to import models to a main.js file. Okay. Okay, why render is in brackets, but the other are not? I get it, variables don't need brackets and import, right? No, variables, so let me show you once again. Maybe I've answered for this question, but okay, because I didn't see any questions, that's why I answer you, Nguyen, okay? Once again, about this part of questions. So if we are trying to export some exact function, you using square brackets. If you're using by default, if you're exporting by default, you don't need any brackets. You just importing, say hi without any brackets. Import say hi from and pass to file. Yep. Okay, but once again, you might export some files by default. You might change sometimes name. You just, in which cases? For example, let me think. Let me think about how to better to provide this example. Maybe, you know what? Once again, I just seen what I missed in my in this in order to explain how import and export and exporting. Yes, so that's one of the way how we can import by default. Okay, this is another way how we can import in by default something. This is how we will remove it. Let's see the export from say by for the say by function, and let's create export const e, which will be equal 3 and 14. Okay, and this is just to show you more examples. Okay, so we might import this p as a mass. No, so p as mass p from file from the file this, and it will be okay. And I will delete it. And comment this in console.log, just p. Okay. So actually it will not work. Why? Because we should, we should provide the export also, not only like this, but also we should provide export s, and then these variables will be this. Sorry about, I wasn't right. Okay, and it should be asked us to, what is it? Not found, hello world. Why? Because we don't have JS on the end, and here the same. Okay, now it should say that, say hi to What else? Yeah, now it's work. So we can export as sometimes it need we just in order to understand what will be with these variables on, or what mean these variables, what mean the function and or objects, no matter what you're expert in, just in order to provide her more sense, which is easy to understand for you, you might change the name. But actually, this is a bad position, as I mentioned before, because if you have 20 developers on a project and you all using different names, you have some mess in your code, right? That's why usually it's not good, but you can do the same. You should know that we might import it as with as a word, keyword, and experts in changing the name of experts in variables. So the same might be with the expert. Expert. So say hi. Oh, say bye. Okay, we're working with say bye as bye. So, and my expert this say by function is by just import by from hello world, but it's incorrect. Why? Because we didn't use the square brackets. Let's see. Okay, no, it's correct. Okay, but usually, okay, so we one more about the square brackets. Give me a second, please. So what about usually we exporting the functions, in square brackets. If we would like to, it's allow us to see that this is first of all not default function. It was exported not like default, and we may provide some additional here, like this. This will be easier to understand and easy to use. So about next things about I've mentioned about import with star import with star from the file. You could do this if you need to export everything from this file, for example. But it's bad because sorry, s hello world. So, and here I can call like this, and it will work. When this. So the star using to import a lot of functions, variables, just using the general object, and with using dot and calling specific function, variables, or constant, you might call what you need. But it's bad because it might it's convenient if you need to import more, but it's bad also. So it's bad because sometimes, for example, Webpack might not optimize this file sometimes, or for example, you exactly don't know what your so in this file, for example, we might let's imagine that in Hello World JS we have a lot of code, and we have a 10 experts in function, but in our new two file, we use only 3 or 2 function. So we experts in all, but we use only 3. That's bad because, you know, extra imports and export, we don't need all. It's better to export only what you need, and it's help you to manage your files when you would like to do some refactors. If you remove some function, you might even didn't notice that you remove this function, but this function used in some other file. So it mess really create many mess in the projects and bugs. Yeah, and once again, if you using some specific name, it's allow you to see, you know, it's like clear development. So you see each name, each function which you're using in other files, because import and export allow you to reuse these functions many times. Just import it in a correct file. And you know, you don't need to create this function once again. So that's how you reuse your code once again. That's one of the benefits from models. So let's go to the questions. Once again, what happened if default wasn't used? What happened if default wasn't used? So it's, you know, about wasn't used. You export this by default and you don't use it. It's, you know, it just means that you written you write function which you know, you don't use in a project. So the question why you need this function still in your code, or if you if you did some refactoring in your project and you delete many functions, and you see that we right now don't use, say, high function, and it's not highlighted, right? So it's like in a gray color marked. So it means that you don't use this function, say high, and it's easy to identify that you need to remove this rest of the code. So if you don't import this function, it means that you might not use this function. At least you should remove this export usually, and then you should check, do you use the say high function in this file? If not, you might easily to remove this function, and that's allow you to perform and to have a clean code in your project. Is it okay? Mm-hmm. So, do you have right now any questions about the ways how we can import? Okay, so hope I can see this here something else, but about usually what I would like to say one more time, usually you could see about import. So just when you import in like in the second line or in the first line. And expert by default, you will see also, you might see, I didn't mention, you know what, expert, you could see such the similar expert like expert const render. And also I didn't mention about next expert way. So I mentioned this type of expert as in order to change the name of the function or constant, no matter. And also you could export like this, you know, create some expert object. Something like this. It's easy to read. Or for example, expert default and creating some constant, for example, const hello world with hello world, which is usually my expert. Old hello world. No. Okay, so just object. You might create this object separately. Or like this. Seems like I had a mistake here too. So yeah, and just import this hello world function or object. But you may also export it without it. And then just import like this, just like this, and say hello world p, because p is not a function, it's a variable, it's easier to use it. Okay, like this. And browser, once again. So you see, it's easier. Okay, not this, maybe you have questions here. Actually, I mean, just use expert say hi without default. Experts, yeah, experts say hi without default. You just, without export word, say how you cannot export. So expert function say hi, and it means you experts in say hi without default. Okay? Or something unclear still. Yeah, this is the common issues. So let's talk about possibility of models, okay? So one more interesting things about you noticing, this is really good. So use models usually in use strict mode. Moduly is using only in use strict mode. It means that you should remember about some specific behavior with the var, const, and so on, so on. So what I'm talking about console log y and y equal 1. So it will be error in a browser, right? So because of use strict. For example, if it will be just the simple JavaScript file which will be not exported as a model, you will not see this error. But because model is in use strict mode, you should remember some specific behavior related to use strict mode. Okay. Also, please don't forget about importing without JS .js, because you can do this only with Webpack, for example, or some tool which build your application. And in this tool, you should provide some settings for this, or that you might not mark your file with .js. Okay. What I didn't mention, one more things, but we actually, it was mentioned in the presentation about this. So each model has his own scope. So as mentioned in this picture, we have global scope, and in this global scope, you will see the model scope. So what does it mean? It means that if you have a few models, you will see the few model scope. Don't forget about this. Don't forget about next things, about how to say it, about that the code in each, no, not in each, the code in a model is running only once when you are inputting. So what does it mean? It means that let me, you know what? Moment, please. About this, you could just here there is an examples. Okay, you just easily to use this link to see some topics. I really recommend you this website. So what here? Model code is evaluated only the first time when imported. And what does it mean? It means that if you import your file, for example, let's imagine that in alert.js file we have some message. Here it will be in this example, model is evaluated. So when you import in this alert.js file, it will be evaluated only in the first JS file, but in the second JS file you will not show nothing. But it not mean that it won't. Oh no, it didn't evaluate. No, it just means that model is working like he running his code only, not running, evaluated only once. Okay. So what's next? The next, I didn't highlight just a few topics. Try to remember all of them. So yeah, about import meta, it means that import meta contains all information about modules. Again, in this website has an example here, something. No. Oh yeah, here. So we might ask import meta, and we will see some information about this model. Okay. Be honest, I have never used model meta, but maybe it will be useful for you. Maybe in Node.js it will be often situation. Because the one more important thing, because each model has his own scope. This isn't, as you see in this image, this not defined. So if you would like provide some this, you should create them. But for example, in a global, hope you remember that the global scope is equal window, right? Yeah. What about? I think I saw here some part of code. We will talk about it just a little bit later. I saw, not sure that here, where it was. So what I would like to tell you about models, one more interesting things, and you should remember that that's how the models will work. Usually, the execution of models is different. So what does it mean? It means that so they are execution in different mode, and this is the same like a script with different attribute, right? How to show you? Maybe and how it, so the first, how it influences the page. So for example, if you running the script with a type of model and for example try to identify or do something with a button, you have some button on the page. So if you're using script with type model, your model will not provide you some errors, and he will see this button, for example, or some functions and provide you correct result. But if we're talking about the script without any model, right, or different parameters, you will see the error. Why? Because of hosting. When you're for example, once again, I saw somewhere, maybe on a website, or is a button. Yeah, here. So what is here? Here we have the example with script module and with without just regular script. So for example, we have a button on a page, and you know, the script. You should I hope you saw such information about hosting, and you know, hosting have two phases. And in the first phases, it defines all variables, for example, or functions, creating them and providing them the value like undefined, right? But in the second execution, they will compile them and run them if it needed. So here, when you have a script on a page, if we just imagine that this part will not exist, just with this, so we have an error. Why? Because when the script is running, he's running first, and he didn't see the button. But the script with a module type, he will run only after the page will be loaded, HTML page will be loaded. So it means that in this case, the button will be created, and the module and the script see this button. Okay, let's go here. What else? Something interesting of this? Maybe I forgot about some. Yeah, okay, so the script with the module might be work with async. I mentioned about the work, how it works if we try and evaluate some codes a few times. Okay, I don't know. For example, sometimes one more interesting things about, for example, some browsers, we've talked about it. Some browsers don't understand the models, such as EA browser, Internet Explorer. So usually, if it's just, you know, some I've told you that, for example, if you build your application with Webpack, you can join the plugin, and this plugin help you to compile your application for Internet Explorer browser. But sometimes there is some type of script which you can use. This is like here module, right? But if I know that my website might be open in Internet Explorer, I also might create some script. No model. And here I might just, you know, create alert, or, you know, document write, and write in a page that sorry, this application didn't work in the Internet Explorer. Please use something modern like this. Okay, what else? Seems like it's everything about the general information about models. That's why, you know, you might read also how the models is how would you call it in English? In English, it might say about building tools. Yeah, building tools. So it have some specific word with the built-in tools. On javascript.info, you can read about this. What I think about, let's talk about, you know what? Just a few notes about the CommonJS. CommonJS, this is the model. This is a system which usually is using for Node.js. Here we have some import. In Node.js, you should know that we are importing usually our script using require, and not usually needs to use .js. It will be okay without any error. The code will run. And module export, this is how we using how to export, or yeah, that's how we are using our export. That's the same example from the main pages, common pages, help file pages. So that's but this is just for Node.js interpretation, okay? And here I highlight you about the first line, const render, require common, and dot render. So if you import in some, so here in file page, module export, I don't know, let's take a look about edit page. They are just exporting in this for edit page in for constant edit page, we will export this object, right? So what we mentioned in this module export will be exported. So the same here in a common file, we saw that for export we using the, you know, because this is object dot and asking name some parameters, we can call this function. So I think you should, I should highlight it. Okay, we talked about this. Also, I think I saw MDN. Yeah, MDN, asynchronous model definition. This is one of the popular old-fashioned model system. So not usually, it was implemented by the library which is called require.js. Require.js, you should. This is really good. Require. This library is existing right now, still existing. I can show you this. Yeah, so this is really popular. Provide you easily to import or export some information from the files. But what I can tell you about AMD, yeah, so usually if you would like to use the imports or export using AMD, just need to use require.js library, and some information I would like to remember. Yeah, so about AMD, so usually our models export in one by one, right? AMD allows you, this is like asynchronous model definition, so that's why this library allow you to export in asynchronously the scripts, and it allow you to save some times for render and loading, of course. That's why it's a useful tool. And you know, there are three UMD also. I don't remember about this. Yeah, about UND wasn't mentioned. So this is another module system, like, you know, the universal system, which is help you to work with export and import, and it might be combined with AMD and CommonJS libraries. Okay, like this. So I think mostly we've talked about model. Let me check the questions here. Alert. Yeah. Maybe you are talking about the examples about with alert.js. Yeah, so models, actually, this is not a difficult or not complicated topic, but because the model has some specifics in his work about deferred and about asynchronous work, about some specific of importing or exporting files, some specific code. Yeah, just need to remember that sometimes you might see some errors, and in order to avoid them or to fix them, just better to remember some special things, because how import or export, it's easily usually you will see on your project this information, but how model exporting, how its execution or evaluation, the processes, it's just a bit different from the regular script. Okay, that's all from my side for today. 1 hour and 28 minutes. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So will I answer you for all your questions? Maybe have a check to reschedule how to import models to main file. Happen if default wasn't used. Okay. Hope all your messages was here. That's all for today. I stop into sharing my screen and stop recording.